What happens when two of country music's biggest powerhouses clash on live television in a way nobody saw coming? Today, we're diving into the moment that had everyone talking. When Reba McEntire shocked audiences by walking off the Kelly Clarkson show after an explosive disagreement that started innocent enough, but quickly spiraled out of control. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think really caused this tension between these two icons. The atmosphere in the studio seemed perfectly normal as Kelly Clarkson settled into her chair across from the legendary Reba McEntire. The cameras were rolling. The audience was buzzing with excitement. And what should have been a routine promotional interview was about to become one of the most uncomfortable moments in daytime television history. Kelly started with her usual warm approach, that genuine smile lighting up her face as she leaned forward. "Reba, it's always such a pleasure having you here. Your new album has been getting incredible reviews, and I have to say listening to it brought back so many memories of when we worked together on that duet years ago." Reba's expression remained politely neutral, though something flickered in her eyes. "Well, Kelly, I appreciate you having me on the show. It's always interesting to see how people remember things differently than how they actually happened." The comment hung in the air for just a moment too long. Kelly's smile faltered slightly, but she pressed on with professional grace. "Oh, I think we both remember that recording session pretty clearly. It was such a special time working with someone I've always looked up to in this industry." "Looked up to," Reba repeated, her voice carrying a slight edge that the studio audience couldn't quite place yet. "That's an interesting way to put it, considering how that whole situation played out behind the scenes." Kelly shifted in her chair, clearly caught off guard by the sudden shift in tone. "I'm not sure what you mean, Reba. We had a great time recording together. The song did really well, and I thought we had a wonderful working relationship." "Wonderful," Reba said with a dry laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "Kelly, honey, let's not pretend for these cameras that you don't remember exactly what happened during those recording sessions. Or maybe you've just gotten so comfortable rewriting history that you actually believe your own version now." The studio felt eerily quiet. Kelly's media training was kicking in, but you could see the confusion and hurt starting to creep across her face. "Reba, I genuinely don't know what you're referring to. If I did something that upset you during that time, I wish you would have talked to me about it privately instead of bringing it up here." "Privately?" Reba's voice rose slightly, and she leaned back in her chair with a look that could freeze water. "Oh, believe me, Kelly, I tried the private route. I tried calling your people. I tried reaching out through mutual friends. I even tried talking to you directly at industry events, but you were always too busy. Always had somewhere else to be. Always had some excuse." Kelly's face was flushing now, a mix of embarrassment and genuine confusion. "Reba, I swear to you, I never got any of those messages. If there was some kind of miscommunication with my team, I'm so sorry, but I still don't understand what this is about." "Don't understand?" Reba's voice was getting sharper now. "Kelly, you took credit for arrangements that weren't yours. You made changes to lyrics without discussing them with me first, and then when the song became successful, somehow the story became all about your creative input and your artistic vision, while my contributions got pushed to the background." The accusation hit Kelly like a physical blow. You could see her processing the words, trying to make sense of them. Reba, that's not how any of that went down. The song was a collaboration. Both our names are on it. I never tried to take credit for your work. Both our names are on it?" "Sure," Reba continued, her voice dripping with sarcasm now. "But somehow in every interview you did, every behind-the-scenes story you told, it became about how you brought this fresh perspective to my sound, how you helped modernize my approach. Real funny how that narrative developed, don't you think?" Kelly was visibly struggling now, her hands gripping the arms of her chair. "Reba, if that's how it came across in interviews, that was never my intention. I have nothing but respect for you and your legacy. You're one of the reasons I wanted to be in this business in the first place." "Legacy," Reba repeated with a bitter laugh. "There's that word again. You know what, Kelly? I'm tired of being treated like some museum piece that younger artists can use to add credibility to their careers. I'm tired of being the gracious legend who's supposed to just smile and nod while people rewrite the story of my own work." The tension in the studio was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Kelly looked like she was fighting back tears. But there was also a spark of defensiveness starting to show in her eyes. "That's not fair, Reba. I've never treated you like a museum piece. I've always spoken about you with nothing but admiration and respect." "Respect?" Reba leaned forward now, her voice low and dangerous. Kelly, let me tell you something about respect. Respect would have been checking with me before you started telling stories about our collaboration that made it sound like you were the teacher and I was the student. Respect would have been making sure I was comfortable with how our duet was being promoted before you went on every talk show circuit spinning your version of events. Kelly's professional composure was cracking now. My version of events, Reba? I was just sharing my experience of working with you. I never meant to misrepresent anything. Your experience, Reba repeated mockingly. And what about my experience, Kelly? What about the fact that I had to watch interview after interview where you talked about bringing your pop sensibilities to country music, using our duet as an example, without ever acknowledging that maybe, just maybe, I knew a thing or two about crossing musical boundaries long before you came along? The words were like daggers and Kelly's face was now showing a mix of hurt and growing anger. Reba, I never said anything like that. I would never diminish your accomplishments or suggest that I taught you anything about music. You didn't have to say it directly. Reba shot back. It was in the way you framed every conversation, the way you positioned yourself in every story. Young pop star helps country legend find new sound. That was the narrative, wasn't it? Kelly's eyes flashed with something that hadn't been there before. A steel that most people never saw from the usually bubbly talk show host. No, Reba, that wasn't the narrative at all. And you know what? I'm getting really tired of you putting words in my mouth and intentions in my heart that were never there. Reba raised an eyebrow, clearly not expecting Kelly to push back with such force. Oh, so now you're going to sit there and tell me I imagined the whole thing. I'm going to sit here and tell you the truth. Kelly fired back, her voice stronger now despite the tremor of emotion, which is that I spent weeks preparing for those recording sessions, studying your catalog, learning about your history, because I wanted to honor what you've built in this industry. I didn't go in there thinking I was going to teach Reba McEntire anything about music. Then explain to me how every single interview you gave made it sound like you were the creative driving force behind our collaboration. Reba demanded, leaning forward aggressively. Explain to me how your publicist managed to get your name listed first on half the promotional materials. Kelly's mouth fell open in genuine shock. My publicist, Reba, I don't control how record labels handle promotional materials. And if there were mistakes made in the marketing, that has nothing to do with what I said or didn't say in interviews. Mistakes? Reba repeated with a harsh laugh. Right, because accidentally listing the established country music legend second behind the pop crossover artist is just an innocent little oops. Yes, it probably was. Kelly shot back, her voice rising to match Reba's intensity. Because believe it or not, Reba, the world doesn't revolve around some conspiracy to diminish your legacy. Sometimes mistakes happen in the business side of things that artists have no control over. The audience was dead silent now, watching this legendary confrontation unfold with a mixture of fascination and horror. You could see people in the front row exchanging uncomfortable glances, unsure whether they should be witnessing this level of personal conflict. Reba's face was flushed with anger now. You know what, Kelly? The fact that you're still making excuses and refusing to take responsibility for any of this just proves my point about your character. My character. Kelly's voice cracked slightly, the hurt bleeding through her anger. Reba, I have spent my entire career trying to lift up other artists, especially women in this industry. I have never, not once, tried to tear anyone down or steal credit for their work. Then why did I have to watch you on 3 different talk shows talking about how you brought a fresh perspective to traditional country music, using our duet as your primary example? Reba's voice was getting louder now, and several audience members visibly flinched. Kelly threw her hands up in exasperation. Because that's what interviewers ask about when you do a country collaboration. They want to know about the creative process, about what each artist brought to the table. I was sharing my experience, not trying to overshadow yours. Your experience of teaching the country music veteran new tricks. Reba's sarcasm was cutting now. Your experience of helping modernize my sound. Those were your exact words on The Tonight Show. Kelly, I watched that interview and I recorded it. Kelly's face went pale. I never said I was teaching you anything, Reba. If I talked about bringing my perspective to the song, that's because that's what collaboration means. 2 different artists bringing their strengths together. Collaboration. Reba spat. You want to know what real collaboration looks like? Real collaboration is when both artists get equal respect in the narrative. Real collaboration is when the younger artist acknowledges what she learned from working with someone who's been doing this for decades, not the other way around. I did acknowledge that, Kelly protested, her voice breaking slightly. In multiple interviews, I talked about how much I learned from you, how honored I was to work with you. After the fact, Reba interrupted sharply, after people started calling you out for the way you were framing the collaboration. After your team realized how bad it looked that you were positioning yourself as the creative leader on a duet with Reba McEntire. Kelly was visibly shaking now, whether from anger or hurt or both. That is not what happened, and you know it. I never positioned myself as anything other than grateful to be working with you. Grateful. Reba laughed bitterly. Right up until it came time to promote the song, and suddenly you were full of insights about bringing country music into the modern era. Because that's what music journalists wanted to talk about, Kelly exploded, finally losing her composure completely. Because that's the angle they push when a pop artist does a country collaboration. I was answering their questions, not creating some master plan to steal your thunder. And you couldn't have redirected those conversations? Reba demanded. You couldn't have said, hey, actually Reba McEntire has been crossing musical boundaries and evolving her sound long before I came along? Kelly's eyes filled with tears, but her voice remained strong. I did say things like that, Reba. Maybe not in every single interview, but I did. And the fact that you're sitting here acting like I orchestrated some campaign against you is honestly breaking my heart. Breaking your heart. Reba's voice dripped with disdain. Kelly, you want to know what broke my heart? Watching someone I mentored and supported turn our collaboration into a stepping stone for her own narrative about being an innovative artist. Mentored. Kelly's voice was incredulous now. Reba, we worked together for 2 weeks. We recorded one song. When did you mentor me? The question hung in the air like a slap. Reba's face went through several expressions before settling on cold fury. When I agreed to work with you in the first place, Kelly. When I lent my name and my reputation to boost your credibility in the country music world. That was mentorship, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. Kelly stared at her for a long moment, and when she spoke again, her voice was quiet but steely. So you think doing a collaboration with me was charity? You think working with me was some kind of favor you were doing for the poor little pop star? I think Reba said slowly that I gave you an opportunity that opened doors for you in country music, and instead of being grateful, you used it to build a narrative about your own artistic evolution. Kelly's composure finally cracked completely. You know what, Reba? You're right about one thing. This collaboration did teach me something important about the music industry. The words came out like a knife cutting through the tension in the studio. Reba's eyebrows shot up, clearly not expecting Kelly to take this direction. Oh, really? And what lesson was that? Kelly wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, but her voice was steady and sharp. It taught me that some people in this industry are so insecure about their own relevance that they need to control every single narrative, even years after the fact. The audience gasped audibly. You could hear people shifting uncomfortably in their seats, and somewhere in the back, someone actually whispered, "Oh my God," loud enough for the microphones to pick up. Reba's face went white, then red, then back to white again. "Excuse me? You heard me," Kelly continued, her professional mask completely gone now. You want to talk about character, Reba? Let's talk about the character it takes to come on someone's show, smile for the cameras, and then ambush them with accusations about things that happened years ago. Ambush you? Reba's voice was dangerously quiet now. Kelly, this isn't an ambush. This is me finally telling you the truth about how your actions affected other people. No, this is you using my platform to air grievances that you apparently never bothered to address with me directly, Kelly shot back. You said you tried to reach out. When? Because I've been accessible to every artist who's wanted to work with me or talk to me, especially someone of your stature. Reba leaned back in her chair, a cold smile playing at her lips. Oh, so now it's my fault for not trying hard enough to get through to the busy little pop star? It's your fault for coming on my show and blindsiding me instead of having an adult conversation, Kelly fired back. It's your fault for making assumptions about my intentions without ever asking me directly what I meant. Assumptions? Reba's voice was climbing again. Kelly, I didn't assume anything. I watched the interviews. I read the articles. I saw how the whole thing played out in the media. And you decided that I was personally responsible for every headline, every promotional decision, every interview question that got asked, Kelly interrupted. You decided that everything that bothered you about how our collaboration was covered was somehow my master plan. Reba stood up abruptly, her chair rolling backward. You know what? I don't have to sit here and listen to you minimize what happened and act like you're the victim in this situation. Kelly remained seated, but turned to face her directly. I'm not acting like anything, Reba. I'm telling you the truth, which is that you've created this whole narrative in your head about me being this manipulative person who used you for career advancement, and it's simply not true. Not true. Reba's voice was shaking with rage now. Kelly, do you have any idea what it's like to watch someone half your age get praised for bringing innovation to music you've been perfecting for decades? Do you have any idea what it's like to have your artistic integrity questioned by someone you looked up to? Kelly shot back, rising from her own chair. Now, do you know what it feels like to be accused of being calculating and manipulative when all you did was work hard and answer interview questions honestly? The two women were now standing face to face, the small coffee table between them seeming like the only thing preventing this from becoming something even more explosive. The studio audience was completely silent, some people covering their mouths in shock. Honestly, Reba laughed harshly. Kelly, if you were being honest in those interviews, then your honesty revealed exactly what I suspected about your ego and your priorities. Kelly's face crumpled for just a moment before the anger took over completely. My ego? Reba, you came on my show to lecture me about how I should have been more grateful for the privilege of working with you. You're standing here acting like collaborating with me was some kind of charity case. And you want to talk about ego. It wasn't charity, Reba snapped. But it was an opportunity that a lot of artists would have handled with more grace and humility than you did. Grace and humility? Kelly's voice cracked with disbelief. What would have been graceful, Reba? Should I have told every interviewer that I was just lucky to be in the same room as you? Should I have downplayed my own contributions to make sure your feelings didn't get hurt? You should have remembered who paved the road you're walking on, Reba fired back, her voice echoing through the studio now. The words hit Kelly like a physical blow, and for a moment, she just stared at Reba with an expression of pure hurt and disbelief. When she spoke again, her voice was quiet but filled with a pain that was impossible to miss. You know what breaks my heart the most about this whole conversation? It's that I genuinely believed we had created something beautiful together. I thought that song represented two generations of female artists supporting each other and creating something neither of us could have made alone. Reba's expression softened slightly, but her voice remained hard. That's what I thought too, Kelly. Until I watched you turn it into a showcase for your own artistic growth. I never turned it into anything, Kelly said, tears flowing freely now. I shared my experience of the creative process because that's what artists do when they're promoting their work. I talked about what the collaboration meant to me personally and professionally because that's what interviewers asked me to do. And it never occurred to you to think about what your words might mean to your collaborator? Reba demanded. It never crossed your mind that maybe Reba McEntire didn't need a young pop star explaining to the world how she helped modernize country music. Kelly threw her hands up in complete exasperation. I never said I modernized anything. Reba said working with you taught me about the timeless elements of great songwriting. I said, our collaboration showed me new ways to approach melody and storytelling. After you spent the first half of every interview talking about bringing your pop sensibilities to traditional country music, Reba countered. Because that's what I brought to the table, Kelly exploded. That's what collaboration means. Each artist brings their strengths and their perspective. I brought my background, you brought yours, and we created something together. Something that you then used as an example of your artistic versatility and growth. Reba shot back. Kelly stared at her for a long moment, and when she spoke again, her voice was deadly calm. You know what, Reba? You're absolutely right about one thing. Reba crossed her arms, waiting. This conversation has taught me something very important about you, Kelly continued, her voice getting stronger. It's taught me that you're so threatened by younger artists getting recognition that you can't celebrate their success without feeling like it somehow diminishes your own legacy. The accusation hung in the air like a bomb that had just detonated. Reba's face went through a series of expressions. Shock, rage, hurt, and finally something that looked almost like betrayal. The silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity. Before she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper, but somehow more dangerous than when she had been shouting. Threatened by younger artists, Reba repeated slowly, each word dripping with venom. Kelly, I have spent 40 years in this industry, building up younger artists, mentoring them, opening doors for them, and supporting their careers. Then, why can't you do the same for me? Kelly demanded, her voice breaking. Why can't you be proud that our collaboration was successful? Why can't you celebrate the fact that it introduced your music to a whole new generation of fans? Because you made it about you, Reba exploded, all pretense of control finally abandoning her. Because instead of honoring what we created together, you turned it into Kelly Clarkson's journey of artistic discovery. Because you took something that should have been a celebration of two artists and made it a case study in your own evolution. Kelly's face was red with anger and wet with tears, but her voice was steady when she responded. That is not what I did. And deep down, you know it. What you're really angry about is that I didn't spend every interview talking about how grateful and lucky I was to work with the great Reba McEntire. What I'm angry about, Reba shot back, is that you never acknowledged that there might be something for you to be grateful for. You never once acted like working with me was anything more than just another collaboration with just another artist. Because that's what it was supposed to be, Kelly screamed, finally losing every shred of composure. It was supposed to be two artists, equals, creating something beautiful together. It wasn't supposed to be me kissing the ring and being thankful for scraps from the Queen's table. The words hit Reba like a physical slap. Her mouth fell open, and for several seconds, she just stood there staring at Kelly with an expression of complete shock and hurt. When she finally found her voice, it was completely different from anything she had sounded like during the entire confrontation. Scraps from the Queen's table, she repeated, her voice hollow and wounded. Is that really what you think of me? Is that really how you see someone who has given everything to this industry and tried to lift up every artist she's ever worked with? Kelly immediately looked stricken, as if she realized she had gone too far. Reba, I didn't mean it like that. I just meant that I never thought our collaboration was charity or some kind of favor you were doing for me. But Reba was already shaking her head, her face a mask of hurt and disappointment. No, Kelly. I think you meant exactly what you said. I think that's exactly how you've always seen me, as some aging queen holding court, expecting younger artists to grovel for my approval. That's not true, Kelly said desperately, reaching out as if to touch Reba's arm. I have nothing but respect and admiration for you. You're one of my heroes. You always have been. Reba stepped back, avoiding Kelly's reach. Heroes don't expect gratitude, right, Kelly? Heroes just do their job and fade into the background while the real stars take center stage. Stop putting words in my mouth, Kelly pleaded, tears streaming down her face now. You're twisting everything I'm saying. I'm not twisting anything, Reba said, her voice eerily calm now. I'm finally hearing what you really think about me and my place in your career. And you know what? It's exactly what I suspected all along. Kelly was openly sobbing now, but she kept trying to salvage the situation. Reba, please. This has gotten completely out of hand. We both said things we didn't mean. Can't we just take a step back and talk about this like adults? Adults? Reba let out a bitter laugh that had no humor in it whatsoever. Kelly, adults don't spend years building up resentment and then explode on national television. Adults don't accuse their collaborators of being insecure queens looking for validation from younger artists. I'm sorry I said that, Kelly said through her tears. I was angry and I said something cruel, but it doesn't represent how I really feel about you. Reba looked at her for a long moment, and something in her expression shifted. Not softer, but harder, more final. You know what, Kelly? I think it represents exactly how you feel. I think it represents how a lot of people in this industry feel about artists of my generation. We're museum pieces to be trotted out for credibility and then dismissed when the real work of being modern and relevant needs to be done. That's not true, Kelly whispered. Isn't it? Reba asked quietly. Because from where I'm standing, this whole conversation has been about you defending your right to use our collaboration as an example of your artistic growth without ever acknowledging that maybe, just maybe, the veteran in the room might have contributed something valuable too. Kelly opened her mouth to respond, but Reba held up her hand. You know what? I'm done. I'm done trying to explain to someone half my age why respect matters. I'm done trying to make you understand that legacy isn't just about what you accomplish, but about how you honor the people who came before you. The studio was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Reba walked over to the chair where she had been sitting and picked up her purse, moving with a dignity that somehow made the moment even more devastating. Reba, please don't leave, Kelly begged, following her. We can work this out. We can talk about this privately after the show. Reba turned to face her one last time, and her expression was a mixture of sadness and finality. Kelly, I think we've both said everything we needed to say. The cameras got it all. Your audience heard it all, and now everyone knows exactly where we both stand. But this isn't how I wanted things to go, Kelly said desperately. This isn't who I am. Maybe not, Reba said quietly. But it's who you are today, in this moment when it mattered most. Without another word, Reba McEntire turned and walked toward the studio exit, her heels clicking against the floor in the absolute silence. Kelly stood frozen in the middle of her own stage, tears streaming down her face, watching one of her musical heroes walk out of her life. As the studio door closed behind Reba with a soft but decisive click, Kelly finally sank back into her chair, covering her face with her hands. The audience sat in stunned silence, unsure whether to applaud, console, or simply pretend they hadn't witnessed the complete destruction of a relationship between two of music's biggest stars. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every moment of Kelly's breakdown. And somewhere in the control room, producers were probably already calculating the social media impact of what would undoubtedly become one of the most talked about moments in daytime television history. What started as a routine promotional interview had become a masterclass in how years of unspoken resentment and miscommunication can explode in the most public way possible, leaving two talented women wounded in a friendship seemingly destroyed beyond repair. So there you have it. The moment that shocked the entertainment world and left everyone asking what really happened between these two powerhouses. What do you think was the real issue here? Was it about respect, ego, or something deeper? Hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments who you think was really at fault in this explosive confrontation.